So, today we're diving into a book that's so much more than just a book. We're talking about Chinua Achebe's masterpiece, Things Fall Apart. Now, you might know it as a classic, right? But what it really is, it's a political bombshell. It's a reclamation of history, and it completely flipped the script on how the world saw Africa. So, how exactly did Achebe manage to decolonize the narrative? Let's get into it. Wow. That one line, it just hits you, doesn't it? It gets right to the absolute core of the story. It comes from one of the elders, Obiarika, and he's struggling to find the words for this cultural earthquake that's just ripping his community apart. And you can feel it in that quote. It's not just that things are breaking by accident. No, this is about the very fabric of their society being intentionally, deliberately cut to pieces. To really get why this book was such a game changer, you have to look at what the world was like before it was published. For literally centuries, the story of Africa, it wasn't being told by Africans, not at all. It was basically a one-sided conversation, a monologue, really, coming from European colonists, from missionaries, from writers who painted a picture of an entire continent through this distorted lens of their own prejudice. Okay, so this right here, this is the battlefield. On the left, you've got the colonial myth, this idea that African societies were primitive, irrational, basically a blank page, just waiting for Europeans to write on it. And then on the right, you have Achebe's reality. His entire novel is a point-by-point takedown of every single one of those myths. He doesn't just say you're wrong, he shows you. He builds this world to prove just how rich, how organized, and how complex it really was. And that is the absolute genius of his approach. The entire first part of the book, he's not even talking about the colonists yet. He's just immersing us, you and me, in the world of the Igbo people before anyone from Europe ever showed up. And look, he's not painting some perfect, idealized paradise. That's not the point. The point is to show a real, functional, incredibly complex society that has its own laws, its own religion, its own art, its own everything. Okay, let's look at a perfect example, the Egwugwu. Now, a colonist report would probably write this off as, primitive superstition or something. But what Achebe shows us is that this is actually an incredibly sophisticated justice system. Think about it. You've got the village elders, masked, representing the spirits of their ancestors. And they hold a public court, hearing disputes and handing down judgments. This is so much more than just religion. It's law, it's order, it's community, it's even a kind of social theater, all rolled into one. I just love that. See, Achebe's fight wasn't just about the plot. It was happening right down at the sentence level. Think about this. He chose to write in English, the language of the colonizer. But what he did with it was incredible. He didn't just use it, he hijacked it. He filled it with Igbo proverbs, with the rhythms of his people's speech. He basically took their language and forced it to tell his story, to carry the weight and the beauty of his own culture. It's brilliant. And he does the exact same thing with religion. You look at the two columns here. The missionaries show up and all they can see is paganism, superstition, evil. But Achebe peels back that label and shows us what was really there. He shows us that the Igbo spiritual world was the glue that held the whole community together. These weren't just random beliefs about gods and oracles. This was their source of law, their ethics, the very thing that made them a community. So we've established this rich, complex world. Now, what happens when the colonizers finally arrive? You might expect a big, dramatic explosion, right? But that's not how Achebe tells it. He shows us something way more insidious. It's a slow, quiet unraveling. And that's exactly what makes it so incredibly devastating. And the process is just so methodical. Look at these steps. Step 1, the missionaries arrive. And notice, it's not with an army at first. It's with religion, with a new school. They start by appealing to the people on the fringes, the outcasts, and even people inside the community, like Okonkwo's own son, Noye. And bam, step 2, you've got division. The community is split from within. Only then, step 3, does the new colonial government show up, with its own courts and prisons, making the old ways, like the Egwugwu, totally irrelevant. And that's it. That's the collapse. The whole foundation just starts to crumble. And at the center of all this is the main character, Okonkwo. He's really the human face of this destruction. This is a man whose entire identity is built on strength, on tradition, on his status in the clan. And as this new system rolls in, everything he stands for is just wiped away. He becomes powerless. His beliefs are seen as a joke. He's turned into a stranger in his own home. His personal tragedy is the tragedy of his entire culture. being stripped not just of land, but of their identity, their very sense of who they are. All right, this is where it all comes together. The ending of this book is just a masterstroke. After everything Okonkwo goes through, after his tragic end, Achebe pulls back the curtain and delivers his final, most powerful punch. And it all comes back to that one crucial question. Who gets to tell the story? Who holds the pen? So in the very last pages, something incredible happens. The entire perspective of the novel just shifts. For hundreds of pages, we've been deep inside the Igbo world, right? And then suddenly we're ripped out of it and dropped into the mind of the British District Commissioner. He's the one in charge now. He's the winner. And, as we all know, the victors are the ones who get to write the history books. So the commissioner is standing there, looking at Okonkwo's body. And what does he see? Does he see a tragedy? A complex man whose world was destroyed? No. He sees a little story. A good anecdote he can use in the book he's planning to write. And that book, that's going to be the official story, the one everyone else reads. And then we get the title of his planned book. Get ready for this? The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. Just let that title sink in for a second. Pacification, as if he's calming down wild animals. Primitive tribes, as if everything we just witnessed had no value. With just one title, he erases everything. He reframes total destruction as some kind of noble mission to bring order. It is the colonial mindset boiled down to its arrogant, dehumanizing core. But here comes the final, soul-crushing blow. The commissioner considers Okonkwo's story, and he thinks maybe it's interesting enough for a reasonable paragraph. A paragraph. Not a chapter, not even a page. A single paragraph. This epic life, this huge tragedy, this entire complex culture that we've just spent a whole book living in is about to be shrunk down to a tiny little footnote in the colonizer's story about himself. It is the ultimate act of writing someone out of existence. And so, Achebe leaves us with this one simple, powerful question. If you don't tell your own story, who will? The whole book, Things Fall Apart, is his answer to that question. It's him grabbing the pen back. It's a declaration that the stories we tell and who gets to tell them, well, it's not just about books. It's about power. It's about identity. And ultimately, it's about survival.